just started.
Where did you meet her?
Going to a wee Viv. Never you mind.
Come on, where did you meet her?
No, never you mind.
Down the Clydeside?
And the press were all
Manhattans?
The press were all over us. Press were all over us trying to get a picture, right? So we're ducking and diving. And I said to her, I was trying to impress her. I says, come on. I said, I've got us a wee trip to New York for the weekend. Oh, you beauty. Great stuff, she said. So we don't need to tell you, we turn up Glasgow Airport. We're flying to New York for the weekend. And the place is swarming with Celtic supporters. And I'm like, oh my, what's going on here? Oh, this is just a disaster, right? I'm trying to do a wee sneaky. This is just a disaster. Anyway, it gets worse. I only find out they're going to Las Vegas.
Celtic
Correct.
convention.
Via New York, right? And the place was jumping with Celtic.
So please tell me you got pelters on the plane.
Wait, I tell you, you're going to love this story, right? So I was on the plane, right, and it was like the pantomime villain walking on the plane, right? I'm walking on, they're all booing, boo, right? They're all booing me coming on the plane with wee Viv. So we sat down, right, near the front, and I think there was 3 or 4 Lisbon Lions there. Wee Bertie was there. I think Big Billy was there. Bobby Lennox. So I stick my head back. We're just taking off, and I stick my head back through, and I said to the Lisbon Lions, guys, will you give me 5 minutes and I'll go and get a ball and I'll take you on, right? Which I think's a reasonable line, right? It's not a bad line. Anyway, boo. They're all booing me. So I knew my place. I went back through and I sat down. So we're coming in to land at JFK. And the pilot comes on, he says, bing bong, he says, thanks very much. He says, you've been flying so-and-so, we've been flying at 33,000 feet. We hope you've had a lovely trip and we have a lovely stay in New York. On behalf of this New York Celtic Supporters Club, we'd like to take this opportunity in wishing Ali McCoists and his daughter a happy time in New York.
His daughter!
It was unbelievable. I mean, the first thing I've got to say to you, what a football player, Joe. Dear me. What a player. And I think even Graham wouldn't know. I take that back. Graham wouldn't admit it. He probably had his best years behind him by the time he came to Rangers. Obviously his best years probably at Liverpool and indeed in Italy.
Yeah.
But the first thing that we were getting, well, clearly we were getting a new manager, but he was a player manager. And you're right, he carried a presence. But what a football player we were getting on the pitch as well. Somebody I've never played with MD quite like Graham. In the respect, Joe, he knew what the game needed, you know. And by that I mean he knew whether he needed to tackle somebody, he knew whether he needed to slow the game down and take the sting out of it. He knew whether he needed to rile the crowd up, our own crowd or the opposition crowd. He knew if somebody in the opposition needed a harder tackle than normal, shall we say. He just knew his game management was by far and away the best that I've ever seen or ever played with. As I say, he was an incredibly talented football player, but he knew just what the game needed, and he was capable of giving the game that. And then he came up, and the whole place just went crazy, man. I mean, Scottish football, it just turned into the biggest helter-skelter roller coaster, and it was effectively just get yourself strapped in because this is going to be some ride for a few seasons, and that's exactly what it was. I mean, to the point, I remember his first game against Hibs at Easter Road, where 21 of the 22 players get booked after the game. He gets sent off, and then the SFA looked at it and booked for the day, apart from Alan Rough, who was the Hibs goalie at the time. There's a lovely shot of this free-for-all in the middle of the park, and Ruffy's leaning against his post because he couldn't be bought. It was too far for him to run to the halfway line. But that was the kind of thing that kind of took off, and it was amazing. It was certainly an incredibly exciting period in Scottish football.
Yeah, box office.
A couple of things. You only appreciate, you know, how good a manager is as time goes by, and being a coach and a manager myself, you know, because he left me out a few times.
Right.
Of course, at that period, I'm thinking, he's out of order. It's his fault. It's nothing to do with me, because I'm all right. But then when you look at it, and I look back and I say he was doing the right thing. And do you know something? It benefited me. Absolutely benefited me when he left me out, because it gave me a challenge, and it gave me a wake up call. But also, as I say, he knew the game. He knew the game inside out. And as a manager and as a coach, top class.
Right. The Irish football team in some of their practice matches do a thing which is the dubs, as in people from Dublin. The dubs against the Colchies being people outside of Dublin. And, it gets tasty, I'm sure. So, you know where I'm going with this. You mentioned the English contingent at Rangers. So, I mean, Lord knows why, because it seems like a terrible idea. But you'd have the Scots against the English, and
honestly, we used to play them every Friday, and I'm not kidding you. What a team they had, right? Butcher, Roberts, Woods, Wilkins, and Souness used to play with them, Joe, right? And it used to drive us mental.
Why did Souness play with the English?
Because he reckoned he needed to take the numbers up, right?
Okay.
For the 7-a-sides, whatever it was at the training on the Friday. But we'd have rather have played 8-6. There was no way any of us were going to play with England. There's just no way, of course. He sticks the hand up, I'm playing with England. So, and the bizarre thing was, Joe, they couldn't beat us on the Friday. They couldn't beat us. We used to, Durante, myself, Davy Cooper, Stuart Monroe, Jimmy Nicholl used to play with us. And for some reason on the Friday they couldn't beat us. Anyway, one Friday we're playing away and we're about 4 or 5 up, right? So we start all that ole, the passing and flicking it and all this. And I'm watching Souness go, and he's getting angrier and angrier and angrier. So the ball gets played into Durante, who takes a touch, and Souness comes in. Oh my God. A tackle. Well, I'm saying oh my. You've seen some of his tackles. This was an oh my. It's a Graham tackle.
Yeah.
So Durante at that point was really lightweight. And I don't know if you remember those weebles, the wee dogs, the weeble, they wobble, but they don't fall down. Well, he put Durante down, and like a weeble, Durante jumped back up, put his foot in the ball, and said straight to Graham's face, "Is that your best?" Right? to which Graham went, "No, Ian," he said. "As a matter of fact, it's not." He said, "This is." And he belted him one in the chin. He belted him one in the chin. Right? Now, what followed can only be described as madness, right? I've come flying in. I'm dying to get a punch at Souness, right? Headlock. Jimmy Nicholl's rolling about with Graham Roberts. Walter Smith, meanwhile, is running about with a ball under his arm, blowing a whistle, going beep, beep, beep. So it's carnage in the Rangers training ground. And we walk over. Eventually it all calms down. I'll never forget it. We're playing Dundee United the next day. So there's 2 sets of 7-a-side players walking across back to Ibrox. We're not talking to each other, right? So we eventually get in the dressing room and there's no Souness. So we're all sitting there saying, I wonder what he's going to say here. I mean, he's going to go crazy here. We're Friday before Dundee United. We're all rolling about the training ground, So anyway, next minute the door gets kicked in and he walks in. And before I lift my head and look at him, he says, I'll tell you right now, he says, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Right? He says, that's the spirit, he said, that's exactly what I'm looking for. I lifted my head, right, I've got a fillet steak in my eye, covering a big black eye. Ian Durant's got a knife pack on his knee, right? And this is exactly what he's looking for. And to make matters worse, the Dundee United beat us 3-2 the next day.
I mean, what a talented football player. And some boys, I actually think we might have got the best of him at Rangers, because he was comfortable, he was happy, he could go and do his fishing and, the whole bit, and the fans, everybody loved him. And how could you not, And he's probably the one player that I ever played with that really could win a game himself, take a game by the scruff of the neck and win a game with just sheer ability and determination and talent. And plus, he was some boy. I mean, that story, I'll never forget that story. He used to go fit. I mean, what he's like, he's an insomniac. He just could never sleep. He loved his fishing. So we used to come into training every morning, collar and tie. When we trained at Ibrox, that was just something, the history of the club, 140 years, we used to come in collar and tie. So, and he used to be in every morning, bang on 9 o'clock for training at 10, but one morning he's not there. It's 10 o'clock, 9:45, and we're looking about. Where's Gascoigne? Next minute, the door gets kicked open, and he comes in with a pair of waders on, right? With collar and tie underneath. holding up two of the biggest trout you've ever seen in your life, right? So we were just falling about laughing. Couldn't believe it. Hysterical, right? So he was injured and I was injured. So the boys go away in the minibus and they go away training. And he said to me, he says, right, come on, Coist. He says, we'll have a laugh for the fish. I says, what do you mean? He said, right, who's been annoying you? And I went, I said, Jury. I says, Gordon Jury's been really annoying me. He says, right, get into his pocket, get his car keys. So we went into Dukey's car, his trousers, went out of his car, right? So he comes out with the 2 fish, Gascoigne. So we open up the boot. No, this is unbelievable. So one screw, the spare wheel, and I throw the fish in, and I go to throw the other fish in. And Gascoigne says, no, he says. I said, what do you mean? He says, watch. So he takes one of the fish out, screws the wheel back on. He finds a compartment in the back seat of this car that you wouldn't know existed and throws the other fish in there. And he looks at me and says, when he finds the first fish, he'll think that's it. Do you know what I mean?
So devious.
It's a sensational criminal devious mind. That's what we're dealing with. Well, I need to tell you, for the next 3 or 4 days, Jury's coming in and saying, "But smelling my car, I can't get rid of it." He says, "I'm even stopping at the traffic lights." He says, "There's people walking by me." And then, of course, he finds the first fish, like Gascoigne said he would find the first fish. And he thinks that's it. But he says, for the life of me, I can't get rid of the smell of my car. And I swear to God, we went out one day to go on the bus, and you know these wee Christmas trees, the air fresheners? It was like Sherwood Forest. He's got yellow ones, orange ones, blue ones, purple ones, every fragrance known to man, you know? And I think it took him about a month to get rid of the smell in the car when he found the second fish. But, I mean, that was Gascoigne, the funny side of Gascoigne. But, you know, what a great human being. Well, obviously well documented his problems, which we obviously hope he sorts himself out, which would be great. But what a lad.
Honest to God, guys. One of the funniest things ever. Before Euro 96, Gascoigne and Big Les were supposed to be doing an advert for these jet skis company, right? Jet skis at the London docks out by the airport, you know, the water.
Yeah.
So anyway, Gascoigne can't make it. And he says to me, he says, "Coach, I've got you the deal of the century." He says, "I need you to fly to London. I'm supposed to be doing this thing with Big Les. I need you to fly to London." He says, "Just drive about in a jet ski with Big Les at the docks for an hour and you're going to get a jet ski, right?" And I went, yeah, that's brilliant, guys. I said, that's a great idea. I've got, you know, there's a high demand for jet skis in Bridge of Weir, you know what I mean?
Where are you going to use it?
Just see myself, where are you going? I'm not doing the village, you know, the main street, just to get myself a loaf on my jet ski here. I said, I'll do it. Right? I said, I'll do it as a favour, because you've got to do what you're ever doing. He said, right. So I went down, I saw Big Les, I met him at the docks. So we're all kitted out in all the gear, the wetsuits and all that stuff. We're on these jet skis, and there was 2 guys out in the boat taking photographs of us. One was driving the boat. Honestly, this is brilliant. There was 2 guys in the boat. One's on the boat, and the other guy's snapping away, and he's going, "Right, this is brilliant, lads. Just get flying by the boat. That's that, the next thing. Lovely. We'll get some shots of you guys. Terrific." So eventually, we go over to the boat, and the guy says, "Listen, guys, it's brilliant," he says. "Brilliant," he said, "but I need one of you. Can we get one of you crossing over just in front of the boat?" Right? And I sort of cross over, and I'll get a shot of you, one going, one. No bother, Big Les and I can do that, easy. So anyway, away we go, we're setting the whole thing up. It was like something out of James Bond. Anyway, I says to Big Les, I says, "You better come across first." So Big Les comes across first, and I'm coming across to make up the X right behind him, and in front of us is the boat. But what happened is, clearly, when Big Les gets in front of me, all the water comes up, right? I can't see a thing. I cannot see a thing, right? And I'm flying along in this jet ski, right? So I've gone like that, and I can't see. I mean, it seems like an eternity, but it's maybe only 2 seconds. And when I look up, I am 6 feet away from the boat, right? I'm not kidding you, right? The 2 guys dive off the boat, and I go flying over the boat.
No.
Oh, I'm looking at
You
I killed
crashed
myself.
into it.
I hit the top of the boat, right, and went flying right over the top of it. That's me. And I've turned around like that, and there's this wee guy with a camera, about 800 quid's worth of camera around his neck, spluttering, waving, and the guy that was driving the boat, he's in the drink as well, right? I'll never forget it if I live to be 100. As I opened up my eyes, right, I was on this boat. I was 6 feet away from this boat, and there was a cameraman diving off the bow, and another guy diving off the stern. they must have looked up. I mean, it must have been like something out of World War II. They must have seen that. It might have been like a torpedo coming towards them. Like, we're out of here, man. Right?
Actually, if you're just on the dock, like watching, is that Ali McCoists? What's he doing? Mounting a boat.
Somebody tell me, why is Ali McCoist playing Roger Moore, coming to kill us and live and let die?
Your stories, I can't. Honestly, I thought I'd heard all of them. There's so much more, isn't there?
There's one or two more.
First times I met you in Vegas, right? You were on their holiday, and Walter was there, and I met Walter. He says, "Right, come on," he says, "We're meeting Paul tomorrow. We're meeting Gaz tomorrow, in the hotel. We're going to have a bit of lunch, a bit of brunch." Right? I said, that sounds great. That says magic. So I think we're staying at Caesar Palace. We're certainly having brunch in Caesar's Palace.
Yeah.
I got a hold of you beforehand, and I said, we're going for a bit of lunch with Walter. I said, I'll meet you a bit earlier. I said, I'll meet you maybe a bit back at 12 for lunch at 1. And I remember walking down into the place in Caesar's Palace, guys. I tell everybody the story. You're sitting in the bar, right? And you get 2 big cocktails, right? One for yourself and one for me coming down. I swear to God, I couldn't have dived in my cocktail, right? The thing was about that size, right? You're sitting with 2 bowls of chicken wings, right? You're sitting with 2 bowls of chicken wings, and you're sitting underneath the telly. The horse racing's on, the American football's on, you name it, the golf's on. And I took one look at you and I thought, I think we're going to get on just fine. You know what I mean? And I'm just sitting there, and then Walter came down the stairs, guys. Walter came down the stairs, took a look at the trees, and just shook his head, mate. He just shook his head. But that was the first time we sort of came across each other, and we were. I tell you what, mate, I can't tell you how excited and the buzz that we had that you were coming to Rangers, mate.
I remember a true story, Max. Honestly, I was in my bed one morning, 3-4 o'clock in the morning, and my wife says to me, she said, "There's somebody downstairs." I said, "What?" She said, "I'm telling you right now," she said, "there's somebody downstairs." So I listened, and sure enough, I could hear somebody downstairs. Now, I don't know if you ever had that happen in your house at 3 or 4 in the morning, but it's not pleasant. So I jumped up, and I got a 3-iron. I'll never forget, I got a 3-iron. Now, I could never hit a 3-iron at the best of times. It's the wrong club I've picked up, clearly. I go downstairs, and I can hear noises coming from the kitchen, right? So you're faced with this prospect of a burglar or whatever it may be, an intruder in the house. So I think, what am I going to do here? I'm just going to have to react to whatever happens. So anyway, I actually kick open the kitchen door, and what I'm faced with is I recognise the back of Paul Gascoigne in my fridge. Now, this is 3:30 in the morning. He doesn't even turn round, right? I say, "Paul, what are you doing?" He still doesn't turn round and tells me, "I'm making a sandwich." I said, "You're what?" He says, "I'm making a sandwich." I said, "It's 3:30 in the morning." He said, "I know." He said, "But I woke up." Now, remember, he lives in the next village. He said, I woke up and I couldn't get back to sleep and I'm hungry and I didn't have any food in the fridge. So my next question is clearly, how did you get in? I says, "How did you manage to get in?" He said, he says, "I remember." He said, "Remember about 3 or 4 weeks ago," he said, "you were on the phone," he said, "to your missus, and you told her you left the spare key next to in a wee bag underneath the oak tree." He said, "I remembered that and I just thought I'd come and use your key again and make a sandwich." Honest to God. So I went back up the stairs and my missus said, "What's going on?" I said, "You're all right." I said, "It's only Paul making a sandwich." So